All right, we're calling the Selectmen's meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Open session public meetings are subject to being videotaped. Your image and voice may be recorded. We have a number of appointments tonight, so we'll try to move quickly through the sort of more normal administrative things. We have an executive. We have meetings at 7:15, 7:30, 7:45, and 8, and then an executive session at 8:45. So my intention was we'll have about 15 minutes now, and I would anticipate that the 8 o'clock meeting would last about half an hour, so that'll give us another 15 minutes because I'd like to take care of the regular session meetings before we go into the executive session. Okay? Mm-hmm. And again, before we start, I want to thank everybody who participated in Berlin Home Day. I thought it was a great success. Thank you, Lisa, for everything, including the pie eating contest. Yeah, I thought it was a great success. So thanks to all who exhibited, all who helped to put it together, and all who came. It was a great day. All right then, we'll get started. The appointments file is bigger than the approvals file tonight.
Well, it's just a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there is. All right. The first is the approval of a bill for the clerk of the works at the 1870 Town Hall in the amount of $3,840.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Nope.
Okay. Again, this is in line with what we had talked about in terms of scheduling and so on. So, all right, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is in there a little early because all 3 selectmen's signatures are required, so although it's not gonna get paid till June 30th,
Yep.
we want to be proactive and
No,
make sure
that's
she got
fine.
all 3
That's
signatures,
fine.
so
Yep.
she'll hold it.
The next is the signature of the warrant for the selectmen's payroll, which is paid on June 30th. The annual compensation for a selectman this year is $1,144, and that will be prorated in the case of Judy Booman and Lisa. So I take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Nope.
Nobody wants to say we're overpaid from the floor or anything like that? No?
Or
Okay.
underpaid.
All right. All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. There we go. Okay, the next is a request for a reserve fund transfer. And this is because this is for wages part-time for the selectmen. And it is because we are, do we really have $3.59
Mm-hmm.
left to pay Mary through the rest of the year?
Well, actually now, today even, we're running a deficit as of today.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, through the end of the year.
Yeah.
The end of the fiscal year. Well, you and I had discussed this earlier today and putting in for 30 hours for the week of June 8th, the week, if you will, ending June 18th, June 25th, and July 2nd, which are all, those are Sundays, right?
Yes.
So for the weeks preceding those dates. And that would require a reserve fund transfer of $2,492.10. I note that you put 95 as an alternative here. Did you have some further?
Nope,
thoughts?
nope, 30 hours I think will be okay.
Okay. All right, so therefore, that's the story. I mean, we've had a very
Just
busy
more
year
hours, but it
and,
was busy,
yeah, and, a very, demanding, annual town meeting process and putting things together, so that's where we are.
So would you like a motion?
I would like a motion for, reserve fund transfer request 249210.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Do we have any idea what's in the reserve fund?
I thought she said it was like
Wait, there may be another one here.
30 or 40,000. The problem is, there's a lot of demand on that.
Mm.
So there's a lot of departments that are trying
Oh,
to
sorry.
do either internal transfers within, or public safety is working on doing within the Highland Commons Public Safety.
Mm-hmm.
And then the biggest burden is the snow and ice, which she thinks might have extra money laying in 32B health
Mhm.
insurance to cover that.
Is there somewhere else?
So there,
Is there somewhere else?
between
No, no,
reserve fund
that's
transfers,
it.
line
That's
item
it.
transfers, and like she thinks that might be close, but it might be a way to get through the end of the year.
Okay. I thought there was less than that, so that's actually good news for me. I thought there was a lot less in the reserve fund.
I don't have a
Yeah.
good number for you. But she did think that there is ways to cover it.
Good. Good.
Okay, and the next reserve fund transfer is for the town council expense, or actually this is legal expenses as well, and covers the LSP reviews in connection with the Maplewood settlement, correct?
Yes.
Yep. So,
The name change takes effect next year, but.
right, I understand, and we are changing it to legal expenses as opposed to town council, but. So, currently we have, the balance in this appropriation of, $4,234.66. That does not include the payment of an April bill, which came in and has been held up because the April bill actually exceeds that amount in and of itself. The April bill, which covered a number of things, including notably the annual town meeting prep, was 8,000 and some ZBA zoning issues with respect to the 40B at Berlin Capes. I think those are the two largest items in that. That bill was $8,282.73. So that still leaves us with May and June. We know that there were some further expenses with the ZBA during that time. There may be a little on the selectmen's side in June. I have just in the past week had some conversations that we had discussed regarding the lease on the adventure, associated with the adventure park. So there will be money coming in. There'll be a bill coming in for that.
So there's a lot of scribble there that I added today, because after we talked, Copman and Page's May bill came in.
Oh,
So if
good.
you follow the number down to the right where it's orange circled need, you add the KP Law bill of 4242 for May.
Okay. Okay, so if I'm reading this correctly, we were short $4,059.32 on the April bill, and then, correct? As I'm looking at this, is that right?
Just the April bill would have been 4,048.07 would have been the shortage. Then we got the Deutsch Williams $11.25.
Oh, okay,
Which
okay.
brings it down to 4,059.32.
Okay, so that takes us through April, then we got
Bring
the
that
May
further down.
Copeland bill,
Yeah, that
okay?
came in today. Now, so total is 8301.
And that only takes us through,
That's actual deficit, because that's wiping out what we have.
correct, but
Yep.
where I was going was that only takes us through the end of May.
Well, here's what's outstanding: 2 months of Weston Sampson, 1 month of KP Law, and 1 month of Deutsch Williams. Those orange circles
Right.
down below, those are the only,
But those are not included in the 8301, is what I'm
correct,
saying.
those are the
Yes,
only
that's-
outstanding
that's-
bills left to
that's what I'm
come.
saying.
Yep,
So,
you have to
and we
guess.
do not know what those are. So
Correct.
we need 8301 for bills that we received, and we have to come up with a figure. And I know there's another ZBA hearing in June that will require council. I mean, obviously this is an estimate, but I would estimate probably 4,500, given, I think it's gonna track May reasonably well, because in May we had ZBA activity as well. So.
May's in hand. May we have included.
I know that.
Okay.
I'm saying that looking at June, I'm thinking it would track May roughly.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I don't think there's been any Weston and Sampson activity in May. I know there hasn't been in May.
I don't think there has been.
No, same, I
Yeah.
don't think there has been, so I don't think we have to worry about that. There's always the possibility that something would come in June. You don't anticipate a huge amount coming in on labor, do you, at this point?
I think what she has is probably all there
Okay,
is so
because we're only,
far.
I mean, we only got 3 weeks left
Right,
really, so.
Right,
Okay. So if May was 4,000, we put in for 4,500, that would give us a little bit of, I think that'll give us a little bit of
and then we
cushion.
meet with the FinCom in another couple weeks.
So,
They're actually meeting Wednesday, and then they don't meet again until July. So to pay bills through
yeah, we need to get this
this,
today.
we need to be today.
So,
Okay.
all right. So, just looking at rough numbers, we're at 8301. If we put in another 45, that would be, if we,
12,801.
right, exactly.
12,800.
So what I'm saying, if we went in for 12,800, that would, I think, probably carry us through. I mean, you never know, but I think so.
Yeah,
Okay? So therefore, I would accept a motion to request a reserve fund transfer in the amount of $12,800
so moved?
for town council
Second.
expenditure line. Any comments or questions?
No, hopefully that'll take care of it.
Yep, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And Mary, I think, I think we can, we need to put together an explanation for this. I mean, certainly the ZBA stuff was
I can put together an
unanticipated, yeah.
explanation if you want.
Yeah, and if you want to run it by me, that's fine,
Okay.
but, yeah. Okay. And that goes to you. All right. Thanks. All right, then, we will put on our Personnel Committee hat. It is 7:15. We will have a Personnel Committee hearing on 2 subjects. One is Corey policy revision, and the second is the CDL driver drug and alcohol policy. Okay. We'll do the Corey policy first. The Corey policy amendment that is under consideration is an amendment to require annual rechecking of CORI status for employees and volunteers working with particularly vulnerable populations. And did we come up with a good definition for that?
That's special town council's suggestion on vulnerable. Do you not have it?
Oh, sure.
In front of you are all the CORI and,
Oh, yes, okay. All right. And where is the town council's recommendation on vulnerable definition?
Can I just see that real quick? The annual checks, which is bolded and ticked in a little bit,
Okay.
Was what they suggested would be the alternative language.
Okay, great, thank you. So this was the only real question that we had, was, the last time we had this up was, how do we define vulnerable? So, it's including children under the age of 18, elderly persons, and disabled persons as defined by Mass General Laws, Chapter 6, 172C. Reappointment to these positions by the town is conditioned on the successful completion of an annual CORI check. That definition seems reasonable to me. Anybody, any comments from the floor on that?
What is that for, Tom?
This is, these are CORI screening, and we had a policy that required initial CORI screening when somebody took up a position. We had the recommendation that best practice is to have an annual recertification when you're dealing with vulnerable populations. We had that recommendation. The last time we considered it, we didn't have ready to hand the definition of what vulnerable populations meant.
Yeah.
And this seems to me to be a reasonable definition. Okay, any
Yep.
further comments or questions?
No?
All right, hearing none, I would accept a vote to accept the amended CORI policy, including most notably the addition of annual checks as we've just described.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. No further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And the second item that we are dealing with is CDL driver drug and alcohol testing. This is the same CDL driver drug alcohol policy that we looked at before. That people had some questions as to this applies to individuals who are driving DOT-regulated vehicles and is required to comply with federal DOT regulation. And the last time we were up here, people had a question about, well, you know, this seems kind of narrow. Don't we have, you know, how does it fit in with other policies? We have a general policy under our personnel bylaw for drug and alcohol use, and that covers most employees. And in addition, the police department has one that is agreed to by contract. So we have three that are substantially the same, but that's how those three pieces fit together. This primarily impacts employees of the highway department who were also subject and are also subject to the personnel bylaw. So again, this is layered on because it's required by federal regulation. As I say, we had some concerns before whether we had, you know, some exceptions that should be addressed, and we don't. So, so anyway, we're adopting this policy. Any comments or questions on it?
No?
Okay. Any from the floor? Okay. Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thanks for setting all that up, Mary. All right, we'll return to the regular agenda then, and try to get a couple other things out of the way. All right. Okay, this is a request for a line item transfer, as we discussed last week. These are allowed within certain limitations within a particular department. In this case, we are transferring from highway part-time wages to highway regular wages, the amount of $500. So again, this is going from part-time wages to regular wages. The reason for the transfer is that Keith expects a modicum of more overtime in the remainder of the year. The current balance in the part-time wages account is $10,219.18. The current balance in the regular wages is $12,234.66. But again, each of those figures has to cover regular compensation as well as overtime. So a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Okay. Any further comments or questions on that one? Okay. Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There you go. All right. The next item is sort of final payments in connection with the retirement of the building inspector. As we had discussed before, we had asked him to stay on through the end of June rather than taking his vacation days in the month of June, so that we didn't have a gap between, or as much of a gap, we'll see, between inspectors. And we had indicated that we would pay the unused vacation days upon his retirement. And as I look at this, it appears as though that amounts to 4 vacation days. He's indicated he has, a few days in June that he is going to be out for appointments. He is going to take 3 vacation days in June. And that leaves 4 vacation days, which will be paid on his termination. The amount is $1,465.36. These vacation days were accrued and they're not carried over from year to year. So I believe that the treasurer just wanted us to have a vote. I did speak to Larry. I was in there to get some plans earlier, and this is not a change of plan or anything. It's just documenting what we decided before. So I would accept a vote to communicate to the treasurer our agreement that Larry should be paid $1,465.36 upon retirement in compensation for the 4 unused vacation days.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any further comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We have before us a request to appoint Elizabeth DiChiara. Is that the right pronunciation?
Never got it.
I'm looking at you because it's for
It's for conservation.
Concom.
It's Liz.
What,
Liz
Oh, yeah. Oh, appoint her, absolutely.
yeah.
She's fabulous.
She's terrific.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just was
Not
wanting
her
to
last
pronounce
name.
her first name, her last name correctly.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's.
Okay, well, we'll go with Kiara, but
My hearing aids.
if it's wrong, we still know who we're voting for, right? Okay.
Yeah.
He wants to know how to say
All
her
right.
last name.
And my apologies if I did pronounce it wrong, so. This comes with I gather, a strong endorsement from the Conservation
Yeah,
Commission?
really. She's really good.
Okay,
She'll
So,
be an asset.
Committed, I
Good.
would say, is a
great.
very good.
do you want a motion?
Yes, a motion to
A motion.
appoint for a term to expire. This is this Lee Tabor's term that we're replacing, or?
That or Andrew Donahue's, I don't know. I think it is Lee Tabor's.
Okay, I just noted it wasn't a full term, so.
Correct, yeah, it's the balance.
Yeah, so
I
this
think it
is
is
a,
Lee.
this is a balance of a term for probably Lee Tabor, but for one of the resignations.
Okay.
So if it's for a term to expire May 31st, 2018.
Okay, motion to approve Liz.
Second.
Okay, any further comments or questions? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next item is something that I believe just came in today, and I did have a quick chance to look at it, which is what's called an estoppel letter from to Cabela's, and it is we believe it's in connection with the acquisition of Cabela's by Bass Pro. It's basically asks if there is any default in the sort of status, obligations running to that property, amounts due from that property owner as of a certain date, that we have no claims or any existing right to claim a lien against the property, etc. I took a look at it. Given the fact that we're low on council's budget, I mean, I'm because this is a fairly pro forma document. However, I would like it to go through to the, we need to be sure that there aren't any taxes due. I want to be sure that there's no licensing or inspection issues outstanding. So if we could go out to the inspectors, the tax collector, treasurer, and ask them if there's anything outstanding. And if we get an appropriate response to that, I think we'd be prepared to sign this next week.
Sounds good.
If there are any amounts due or issues outstanding, then we need to collect those, and there's a provision for putting them on as an Appendix A to this estoppel letter, so we can reserve anything that is outstanding, so. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Try to keep on schedule here. Our next appointment is with the Sennies, and we wanted to update on the Adventure Park lease.
Yes. Thank you.
Yep. Hang on, let me just, is that copy of that lease in here? Yep.
May I?
Yes, of course.
Put my hearing aid home.
No, that's, there are lots of nights I wish I did that. I'm not even aware of it. But, anyway, this is an issue that's been outstanding for some time. I had a conference call with Joel Bard, who's our town council, on Friday afternoon. Tim Wheeler joined that call to be sure that we understood correctly what was happening here. The lease agreement, we are on this lease because of our interest in, it's parcel B, correct? I always, yeah.
Yes, 6B.
Yep, 6B. And you want to indicate to us the activities that will be on 6B so that, yeah,
Sure.
so-
And you're not really on this lease. There's no signature from the town required. River Run is owned by a subsidiary of Riverbridge, which we call Riverbridge Glen LLC. And that entity is proposing to enter this, into this lease with Boundless Adventures. And the reason we're here is that we plan to share the proceeds of the rental income with the town, because the town enjoys a right to exercise a right to pay $1 to Riverbridge to purchase 1/2 of the land up at River Run, if it chose to do so. And that is set to expire in November, but we are proposing that we extend that for another 4 years or whatever the town thinks it might want. And that would just put that decision off. But in the meantime, we have a tenant who is gonna take advantage of the good resources up there, the nice trees and the parking area we can create for them, and pay a considerable rent to build and manage this aerial adventure park. It would be our liability insurance. This shouldn't cause the town any increase in its liability insurance. We would probably have to amend our agreement. There's a development agreement between Riverbridge and the town that's recorded on the land records. And in that agreement, we've obligated ourselves to make certain mitigation payments, and there are a number of promises that we have kept and still need to keep with the town. A simple modification of that agreement, I think, would allow us to contribute to the town half of the rental proceeds from this as part of the mitigation, or in addition to the mitigation that we're already obligated
But
to pay the
that's
town.
not in addition, you said?
That's in
Yes,
addition,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
we're
yeah,
not proposing that revenue replace any
Yeah,
other obligations
right.
in the development agreement.
And, okay, and just to break in for a moment, what I meant to say was we are not, we are mentioned in the lease because as the possible successor in interest to you during the period of the lease, and this is really in some respects the quid pro quo of the town, we are acknowledging that we would be bound by the terms of the lease.
Yes.
We are not agreeing to the lease at this point, and we checked this with town council. We are not a party to the lease, you're absolutely correct. But the parties, before they go forward, wish us to acknowledge the legal fact that we would, if in the event that we acquire this property for $1, we would be bound by the terms of the lease. And the terms of the lease are a 5-year term with two,
It's 15 years,
I
With
thought it was
two-
5 with two,
2 5-year options.
with two 5-year
Yes.
options.
So it's a long,
At the option of the
tenant.
Of the tenant in this case. So it is up to 15 years. And that is what we are acknowledging we would be bound by. Again, this is acknowledging a legal fact,
Right.
but they wish to have that assurance.
Right. The other provisions here are helpful in that I wrote language in this lease requiring that the tenant accept the fact that there could be other development up at River Run on the 6 acres or so that is developable, either by the town or by Riverbridge or both of us, and they must accommodate and not disturb those future development rights by being willing to move their parking and have it integrated into a larger parking area. So there's some obligations on the tenant that recognizes that something might happen up there in addition to the aerial park, and they have to work with us on that. The other
And
thing that I've,
Just before we, the portion of this activity that is on 6B is just the parking lot, correct? Is there any other,
You can actually
Part of
see it
that
on the very last
Yep.
page, that the very last page is a small subdivision plan, and this still needs to go through subdivision approval at the planning board. But if you go to the head of the cul-de-sac there, you see a small black line
Yep.
that cuts right through the parking, but then it turns north, goes along the back, and then it turns west again. So half of the parking lot and half of the Boundless Adventure activity
Is in
are
the-
on 6B, and half is of both activities is
Are
on
on
6A.
6A, okay.
So we're really in this together.
mm-hmm,
If you were to exercise your option to buy 6B for $1, you will be buying it subject to this
yep,
activity.
and the
that can-
activity and the parking are both.
Yes, although we can move the parking if you decided you wanted to put a
No, I'm
municipal.
just, yeah, we
Yep.
understand that.
Okay.
Yep, okay,
And the other thing is that I wrote in here that for 120 days after we sign this, and our tenant would like us to sign it so that he can proceed with his planning and the expenditure of money, we could cancel it if we don't get permission from the town of Berlin. So it's not, we came early. We didn't want to sign this without letting this be reviewed by your board and town council. But actually, the way it's set up, we can back out of this
Right.
in 4 months if we can't convince you that this is a good idea. So there's still actually some more opportunity to review it.
okay. We did check with town council, and the indication, the acknowledgement that we are, we would be bound by the terms of that lease is not something that would require a town meeting vote or anything of that sort. So that is within the purview of the Board of Selectmen.
Yep.
And so, basically, I think what we have is we have a revenue stream. Fundamentally, the quid pro quo for this is that if the town acknowledges that it is bound by the lease, we will get the revenue stream. The revenue stream would flow pursuant to this into the general fund of the town, and then would have to be appropriated to, whatever purposes we put it to. If the lease or the acknowledgement of the lease were to include how this money was to be spent, then that would have to go to town meeting, because that is like an appropriation, so.
I see.
So that's the dividing line there. So that's what we have, and you would be looking to us to execute an acknowledgement of that within 120 days.
Right,
yeah.
we'd like an informal go-ahead. We'd like to sign it so that our tenant can go farther. That would then trigger, I would write you a letter and I would say, here is the executed lease. Now the town has 120 days to tell us to stop, because you're not in favor of it. And the end result of that would be some resolution by this board, if you're comfortable with what we're doing, saying, yes, we're not the owner, we're not the landlord, we're not responsible, we have this future potential right. We say, go ahead, and we realize that if we exercise that right, we've got to worry about this other activity.
Yep. One thing you may want to check, and we can talk about this in a sidebar, that as I looked at it quickly, the way that landlord was defined was currently Riverbridge. If we were to put something in the lease that would say that in the event that the town acquires it, the tenant agrees that it would extend, the indemnities, et cetera, that run to the landlord to include the town if it became the owner. So
Yep.
but that was the only thing I saw in the drafting that I thought
Sure,
would
I could
be-
add that now
I mean, I
before
don't think
we
it's
sign it.
it's unreasonable, but yeah.
Sure. We could say that tenant acknowledges, in fact, there's language in here that makes tenant aware of this whole relationship.
Correct, correct.
But I can strengthen it and say, all the promises you're making to the landlord that exists today will carry forward if.
And that's the point, just to be sure that we have, if we do, and again, we have to take a vote, but if we do this, I wanted to be sure that we're acknowledging that we will be bound if we become the landlord, and we want to be sure that we benefit from the protections
Right.
of being the landlord if we become
Yep.
the landlord. You know where I'm going with
Yep,
that.
sure.
So I'd want to, go through it, maybe have town council look at
Sure.
those tweaks, but that was what I thought we.
Can Brian sign this?
Well, sure, as long as we're deciding that we should go ahead and execute. I think what Tom wants to do is take a look at a little bit of extra language, run it by Joel Bard.
Mhm.
If that language is okay,
Yep.
I'd like to
Right,
know if the
and
board
we're
thinks
gonna-
we.
We're gonna get in a moment to seeing if people are willing to take a vote on this tonight, or whether they'd like to look at it, consider it, talk to me, and take a vote next week, or whatever. So does anybody else have any questions about this at this point?
Makes sense.
Okay. Do you wish to have a vote, indicating our, sort of high-level approval to go forward
Is that
with this?
within your recommendations also?
Yes, so, again, subject to the adjustments to the
System.
release that we talked about.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we'd be willing to take that vote. All right, so then I would accept a motion to,
Can
yes, let me put the motion on the floor, because we can still talk
Sure,
after the
okay,
motion's on the
sorry.
floor, but while I'm got a
Yeah.
head of steam up here, let me.
I?
Okay. A motion to indicate our conceptual approval with acknowledging the binding nature of this lease upon us as a successor, subject to appropriate adjustments to the lease to also convey the benefits of a landlord in those instances. Okay, is that fair enough?
Yeah,
Yep.
All right.
so moved.
Second.
Now, any further comments or questions? Yeah.
Yeah, just, a little bit of background, so you know why this is even before you tonight, and it wouldn't be if there wasn't action by the Conservation Commission. We hold a conservation restriction on it, and the Sennies came to us and we looked at it and decided whether this would be all right on land with a conservation restriction on it. And two of the members voted no, so it wasn't a unanimous vote. But the reason we voted for it, without having discussed it with town council, just kind of assuming the money would go to the conservation fund, which isn't the case. But anyway, we voted on it, and I justified voting for it, thinking, well, it isn't that big an impact, and if we get this money, we can buy more land, and overall, the environment of Berlin will be better off. So it was a pro. That's how I justified my vote on it, and everybody else, actually. That's the argument I use. So that's why we're here tonight, but the money has to go into the general fund, and would have to be
And then it can be
voted on.
appropriated, as you
Right,
suggest,
right,
absolutely.
Right. And,
The alternative would be to take an agreement to town meeting ahead of time and hold this
yeah,
all up and have that vote include the appropriation. So my feeling is we should do what's
Right.
before us. My,
right,
in speaking to Concom, with the events surrounding, the annual town meeting, they, I think, are looking at a comprehensive, funding
Right.
request.
right.
And they're really focused on getting something out for at latest, next
Right.
annual town meeting. And I think certainly if we have this in the pipeline and can show that,
Yeah.
that we're getting this income, I mean, that's just one more plus
Yeah.
to that. And I would note that even though we passed over, an article at
Right.
annual town
Right.
meeting, that the town voted to exclude borrowings from Prop, 2.5
Yeah.
associated with conservation. So I think that shows that you have a lot of support.
Yeah.
And my feeling is let's let's get
Sure.
this income stream coming in, and then let's deal with those
Right.
issues as part of a comprehensive funding package that we're
Yeah.
putting together.
Yep. The other thing that was in this discussion, so I think it's on the table, is this other piece that we could buy for $1. We've discussed that with what we know, and I talked with a planning board member about it, and we'll be sending the selectmen a letter saying that we think you should buy it. We don't see any more reason for development down there. We feel there's enough, and you can, with the 12 acres we bought across the street from the Tyler Farm, that shows how much we want to keep it undeveloped in that area. But you'll be getting a letter from us, just so everybody knows, urging you to buy that, whether you do it or not. That's up to you.
Well, we will certainly, be looking at
Yeah.
extending this, and obviously, we're not going to
Right.
let this option run without, without looking at that,
Right.
that very carefully. I would note that, one of the things that I actually thought was attractive about this is that if you're going to do this kind of development, and this is environmentally friendly development, I think
Mhm.
it's fair to characterize it, and also has, some possible synergies with the use of the Tyler Farm.
Right.
2, and 3, I think, it is a nice diversification of commercial activity in the town. I mean, instead of retail now, we have a recreational
Right.
use. So I'm looking at those 3 things, and I'm thinking that's a
It's
pretty good
interesting.
trifecta,
Right.
and, but I would note that if the town had bought it and was trying to do the same thing, it is a great deal more cumbersome because of procurement and stuff like that. So in terms of, acquiring it
Mhm.
versus maintaining the right to acquire it and seeing what,
Yeah.
those are the sorts of things that we're, that we're thinking about. But certainly, we're not gonna let that right expire
Right.
without some
Good.
serious thought.
Yeah.
We're not expecting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay? All right, did we take the vote?
No.
All right. Any other comments or questions on that one? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote. And again, this is to express our agreement to acknowledge this subject to certain conditions. All in favor?
I.
Aye. We're good?
Thank
Good.
you very
Thank
much.
you.
I'll get you some language within a few days.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to have a quick call to tick and tie through things, that's fine, but you know where I'm going with that.
Good, good. I'll get
And
that
then you
to
may
you.
be able to handle it just by tweaking the definition of landlord, I don't know.
I'll take a look.
So, all right.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Tom. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Okay. All right, next we have a meeting with, as Earth Work Board, we gotta get a collection of hats here, But as Earthwork Board, we have an appointment with Broad Merkles and the Hansons regarding water runoff at 249 Randall Road. You guys want to come forward, or, yeah. All right, where we were last time is looking at, the evidence that still suggested to us that not more than 100 cubic yards was imported, and that it still didn't trigger the bylaw. So, anything further on that? Again, even accepting all of those receipts, so,
Okay, we're accepting then that we have 100 cubic yards.
correct.
Okay. So I would turn your attention then to the definition of earth materials in the bylaw.
Mm-hmm,
They are defined as soil, sand, gravel, loam,
mm-hmm,
stone, and the like. So there has been a considerable amount of work done along that property line between us.
mm-hmm,
That line is defined by a stone wall
mm-hmm.
that runs down the middle of the wall, a line that runs down the middle of the wall. So neither the Hansons nor I own the wall, we share it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So
Mhm.
last fall, I noticed that a great deal of work was being done to move stones around the wall. And when I went to check the wall, I could see where they had taken a number of stones away from the wall.
Okay.
My theory is that they did it just down gradient of the drainage outfalls to facilitate the flow of water from the bottom of the slope, which is the property line, through the wall and onto my property. I recall it very well because the one day that they spent the most time doing this, Mr. Hansen's son called over to me and said that he had, one of the stones, boulders I should say, had gotten away from him with his front end loader.
Okay.
It was basically a Bobcat that he was working with.
Okay.
And it got pushed about 10 feet onto my property, and he indicated that he would be back at a later date with a different piece of equipment to move it back.
Mm-hmm.
And he did in fact do that. He
Mhm.
moved it off of my property onto Hanson's property.
Mm-hmm.
They also took a number of boulders from the wall, as I suggested earlier, and they put them in various places on their property.
Mm-hmm.
I have a picture of where some of them turned up.
Okay, so before we spend too much more time with this, is where you're going with this that the boulders should be counted as part of the importation on the property because that wall is owned by neither party? Is that where you're going?
That's exactly right.
Okay. I don't think we're gonna go there. That is not, I think, within the spirit of, it just doesn't seem to me within the spirit of the earth removal or importation bylaw. I mean, that stuff was there. It was, it was there. I mean, I don't see how one can indicate importation from moving, stones that are right there. I just don't see it. If maybe somebody else has more imagination than I do, but
The bylaw is very clear that if you take it from off-site, then it's an importation.
I hear what you're saying. But what I'm saying is these are stones that were in a boundary wall. They were on that site. They were there. And I just don't see it. What I would rather spend some time doing is talking directly about the issue rather than arguing jurisdiction and seeing if the two parties could get together to deal with the issues you're talking, because your concern is mainly you believe that they have changed the drainage on the land and they are now burdening your land with excess drainage. Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you guys have anything to say about that? Because my feelings, we spend a lot of time talking about whether a wall that is a boundary line is somehow metaphysically not in neither place, and so stones are imported from it. But I don't have time for that.
So Paul and I, at the suggestion of the email, did speak yesterday to try and see if we could come to an agreement prior to this. And so Paul and I met out at the front of the property.
Mm-hmm.
And I explained to him that I was getting the rain barrel, and I understood, so I personally don't feel as though it's gonna be resolved here. Paul is not happy with how the property was graded when the house was built, which is why, now I understand why there was the easel and the plot plans and all that stuff, so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the issue is really whether it's 100 yards or what we did. Paul's not happy with the center of the yard all the way over. And I certainly see that far more reaching than earthworks. It goes back to when we put up the house. So we did try and discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
Not really sure what the resolution is. Paul would like us to either put up a retaining wall along the entire length
Mm-hmm.
of the property or a berm, I forget. which, you know, we obviously aren't willing to do. So we did discuss it, and that's kind of where we're
Okay.
at.
I think we are where we were the last time that we talked about this some months ago, which is you may have a cause of action as a butter that they may have made drainage changes on that property that now burdens your property and, you know, diminishes its use. But those, I think, are private causes of action. I don't see a violation of town bylaw here. I mean, so that's where we are.
The work that they did last fall further exacerbated the problem. And what you're saying is they missed by 1 cubic yard. Having
Correct.
control of this.
Yes. Yep. I mean, that's what the bylaw says, that, yeah. Yep. And I don't know about, when was the fill brought in? It was brought in after the effective date of the bylaw, correct? I think the bylaw was passed in 2012.
Yeah, we did look at that at the first one.
Yeah, yeah.
I grabbed the wrong folder.
No, that's fine.
It's like,
Yeah, I mean, I do think this is a private, it would be a private cause of action. Again, if anybody felt that there, you know, a visit or talking about some, mitigation would help, we are, I certainly don't mind trying to be, an honest broker on this, but it's, that would be all we could do. So. Is there anything else on this? Anything else on this? All right. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on very quickly to the next issue. Sorry.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you. May I request like a 3 or 4 minute break here and before our 8 o'clock? And then we'll go into that.
Sure.
All right. The inspector, a new building inspector, and we had our interviews last week, so we kind of wanted to talk to the advisory committee, a little bit, because you had, I think, more time with them than we did, perhaps. One of the things that I sometimes do on this when I have in my other job is where we have sort of a committee looking at hiring, is to give everybody a piece of paper and to rank, just your own feeling. Rank the 3, 1, 2, 3, and correlate that, because sometimes that shows that there's a trend and a decision that's made. So if people are willing to do that, I'd like to do that as a first step.
Okay.
Can we grab a couple pieces of your steno pad and give everybody a?
Kind of wanted to hear how your interviews went.
Oh, you will. We will.
Yeah.
We will. Absolutely. So you can rip that into.
Oh, I'm gonna waste the whole piece of paper. I can recycle it after.
Yeah.
Oh, how many rounds of balloting do you wanna do?
No.
Are we just doing us, or are we doing?
I wanted to get
thought
you
we
guys to
wanted
do it
I'm
too.
sorry.
Yeah.
So,
I was withholding my ranking until I
Yeah.
heard what you guys
Yeah.
found in your discussions with these three.
All right.
What were the 3 names?
Hmm?
What were the 3 names?
Oh, here.
Hanks, at
What was the third?
ATCHUE,
Yep.
which is Etchu, I guess.
Here's the names.
Okay.
Fontaine.
I saw-
And
Oh,
Fontaine.
Fontaine, that was it.
Okay.
Fontaine. extra box.
Okay.
I know.
No, there's no need for a box.
You
All
gonna
right.
redo it?
Huh?
You're gonna do it,
That's it. All right. Yeah. Okay.
I left my hat downstairs.
So. Okay. All right. All right, you ready? We hand it over and I'll, okay.
Lisa's gonna have to. interpret
Okay, one, two. Okay. All right, let's, I'll just indicate, this is quite a considerable correlation here. Hanks has, 2, 2, 1, and a tie for 1. Echu has 1, 1, 2, and a tie for 1, and Fontaine is 3 with respect to all of our choices. So anyway, I mean, I think we can kind of focus on Hanks and Echu, you know, and at least save ourselves some discussion on that score. And I will tell you that I felt a little bit the same as you did with, you know, a tie, you know, between Hanks and Echu. So let's, who wants to go first in terms of their impressions of the, you know, why did you vote the way you did? You know?
Personally, I think that Hanks and H.U. were both solid choices, but I think that Mr. Hanks would be very status quo. So if you're looking at sort of exactly what we have now, keeping everything sort of the same, I think that would be the choice. I think if you're looking at someone who would, you know, come in and look at the things that you could do in the department to modernize it, improve it, look at process flow, be really energetic about the job, I think it would be Mr. H.U.
Okay.
I agree with what you said. It's just that which one would fit best? Someone who wants to, you know, possibly do change or stay the same. And I felt that Mr. Hanks also seemed to be one that would go, I mean, I don't think that he would be swayed by who he's talking to. I think it would, which isn't a bad thing. I think that you want someone who's going to be even-handed as far as the different things that people come in and talk to a building inspector about. He was my first choice.
And on the plus side for Hanks, he seemed, you know, he seemed very steady. He's got a lot of experience. He served as an interim for a period of time, and I had good reports, you know, from him on, you know, about him on all of those things. So he's, you know, something of a known quantity. He seemed to, you know, but both of them seem to, you know their stuff and have sufficient background. I had a sense of Echu that he was a little more energetic, a little more proactive. I think in terms of perhaps, you know, book learning and degrees and so on, he had a, you know, an advantage there. I liked his manner. As I say, I actually, you know, ranked it, you know, 1, 2, and 3, but as with you, I felt it was a very close call between those two.
I was a little bit concerned about him only being in Northborough since 2015 and wanting to move on.
Mm-hmm.
That always kind of sort of sends out a red flag. I mean, I've only done this as far as schools,
Mm-hmm.
which was a little bit concerning what the issue was, or.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, his response to that was that he did want to work, you know, in
small town.
in a smaller town.
Yeah.
And we did ask each of them, again, we said, obviously, we can't hold them, to this period, but we were really interested in somebody who, looking forward in their career, could look forward to at least a 5-year commitment on this. We recognize that obviously things can come up and so on, but emphasize to them that we are a small town. We don't have a lot of executive oversight to manage transitions, and so it was it was a considerable inconvenience to everybody to change horses. Now, both of them indicated that they did not have a problem with a soft commitment, if you will, of that amount of time.
And
Yeah, we'd love to hear what you
Yeah.
guys had to say. Again, very, very similar ratings, so, yeah.
I liked them both. I think they're very different, though, as you pointed out. So the benefit of Hanks is it's low risk.
Mm-hmm.
He's the safe choice.
Yeah, he's done the same job for a long time. He's got good feedback from everyone about how he's done that, and he worked here for a while, and I've heard positive things from both builders and the town. So it's low risk, and I think if he came, he'd stick around because it's probably a place he'd want to settle down
Yep.
for a while. So that's good. And Atchu might bring some change. It might be good. I think there's always room for improvement, especially when you get new technology that's taken over. And he's better educated, so he's kind of in a different class of candidate. He's got commercial experience too.
Yep.
Really strong.
So we're in this funny period here where all of a sudden the town's going from having less than 15 new residential homes built in town per year to all of a sudden we're going to have 208 units down there and another 66 units up here, plus all the businesses and other things that are supposed to be going in down in Riverbridge. So
Yeah,
there's going to be
it's
a
a
blip
busy-
of a couple years
Yep.
where the nature of the job's going to be very different.
Absolutely.
And but then what happens? Then it's kind of going to settle back to what it's been before. So my
it's a
concern
very
about
small town.
yeah about Atchu is it's not just the recent Northborough experience, but he's, other than spending 6 years building with his brother, I think he's moved every 2 or 3 years, right? Which is not necessarily a bad thing because he's progressed each time, and he's got 2 rounds of education in that time frame. But he may not, after the big burst of a few years, he may not find this a terribly exciting job.
Yep.
So I think we might be.
Yep. And again, that happens. And my own sense is it's going to be a 4 or 5 year flip by the time.
Maybe.
Yeah. By the time River
I know
Bridge
what you're
gets
talking.
built out and they finally finish everything up at Highland Commons. But it's certainly somewhere between 3 and 5 years is the flip. Yes. I mean, to my way of thinking, if somebody gets us through that, maybe we need to reassess the building inspector position, because maybe maybe it needs to be ramped down at that point. So I was also thinking about that in terms of in terms of duration. So how about you?
I like them both. Both checked out from the fire side. All I have to do is make a couple of phone calls. They both check out. They're both good guys, and they get along with their brother inspectors and sister inspectors. There's not an issue there. I saw Mr. Atchu was more energetic, like you said, progressive. He knows the computer systems that we don't all use, and so he's got a familiarity with a different computer system than the one we're using, which maybe we need to transition to that because of the problems with the one that they do have now. But he's familiar with that. Again, I think it's going to take a good energy level to keep up with all this stuff that's going on in town. I thought that, again, the part of him, the red flag, was he said he only went there as the assistant, and then the head honcho left, and maybe it's a bigger job than he wanted over in Northborough, because they got a lot of construction going on too, and I don't know what their finances are, I don't know anything about that part of the job.
Yep.
I just know that he gets along great with all the other inspectors. Again,
And you guys checked other references, did you?
we weren't asked to do anything like that, I just called,
Okay.
said, hey, how's this
Okay.
guy doing over there?
Yeah,
Very
Larry,
much.
Larry was gonna make some calls, and he did call. So I have a letter, we got one more vote, actually, so it's not even yet. If we add Larry's vote, I think it becomes a tie.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Oh,
I
really?
know Larry's vote.
Yeah, he's pretty vocal about it. Here's his.
Okay.
Gave me a letter to share with you today, which is gonna
Great,
be
thank you.
surprising to you what that says.
Okay.
But he did. Oh, yeah, I do, yeah, sure.
That's an email string, and the top one is kind of disturbing, and I had heard it
Yep.
a long time ago, but.
Okay.
So that's actually 2 votes, huh?
Sorry, 2
Is
votes?
that 2 votes, like one for, who's Tony Zahari?
I think he's the person that,
He's Clinton's building inspector, and he's our alternate for Larry when Larry's away.
Okay. So he kind of voted here too.
No.
also, I just want to say on the issue of energy, I get the impression that Hanks was a very hard worker.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't doubt
Oh,
that.
absolutely. I think he's a little bit of a workaholic even.
Yeah.
That
Maybe.
seems to go with the job, like all of them seem to be sort of,
It's kind of funny, because this is the exact opposite of the vote that we took as a committee.
really,
That's all right.
okay.
So did you rate them, rank them as a
We
committee?
We voted as a committee,
And who was your number one?
Mr. Atchu, and Larry was the made the motion.
What's it? Oh, I thought we just decided we were gonna.
We had the 2, and, yeah, we said 1 and 2, and then you guys were gonna interview the other guy on Friday,
Hmm.
so.
I have to say, we had really good candidates.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Very excellent candidates, makes it tough.
I don't think you can go wrong,
No.
you know.
No. Well, we do have some references. I mean, we could
Yep.
do some calling.
'Cause I know I talked to Larry at the luncheon too. He said something about he was gonna do some background check on people, and I didn't know whether, anybody knew that or not.
Yeah, he got references from all 3 of them, and he made this one call, but I thought he made 2 other calls. Also,
Okay.
but they're not in the letter, so maybe he didn't.
Well, we could also do something, and do it ourselves.
I think it kind of comes down to an issue of where do we see the town going in the next 5 years, and
Yep.
do we want someone who's going to be more of a change agent, or someone who's going to be a relatively low risk? And
I think you're gonna
Get the
find
job
that
done.
there is a turnover, just statewide, with building inspectors, because there's not a lot of certified credentialed building inspectors,
Right.
so they tend to bounce around anyway. To have somebody long-term like Larry is out of the norm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, whoever you're looking at, I think, in my opinion, you're looking at 3 to 5 years anyway.
Well, I mean, Hank's indicated, of course, he's farther along in his career, that he was looking for a place to settle in. You know, that it's a very close call between those 2.
there's also the issue of compensation. Do we know what the compensation expectations of these 3 people are?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Who
I don't know
normally
we do.
deals with that?
We do.
Yeah.
Do we know what they're making in their present position?
Well, we can check that.
Because that could answer the
Kinda used to
question
having
right
that
there.
be discovered up front and part of the decision-making process.
Yeah.
Right.
Mary, you think you can find those?
The present wages,
Yeah.
yes?
Okay.
Or maybe you have a, again, if you've got it down to 2 and you're trying to decide, maybe you have a specific list of questions that you'd like to have answered and you send it to them. What would your salary requirements be to, you know, are you considering moving within 10 miles? I mean, whatever those questions might be that you have that you need some help deciding. It's
Yeah, yeah.
tie, and right
We were
now.
hoping that, you know, we were hoping you guys were coming in, you know, gonna come in and say, oh, no, I just, you know, go with one rather than two, and we could blame it on you.
You want
But I
two?
mean, you know, having had we're pretty much where you guys were after having the conversations with them, that, you know, there was there were two clear leaders on that, and I think we're sort of agreed in terms of what the relative pluses and minuses are, so.
Do you want 2 or 3? You just want the top 2?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, that's the advantage of doing the ranking, you can sort of focus on the ones you want to focus on, so. All right.
How do you, how do you feel about the state of the building department? Are we looking for change?
Change is difficult for some people.
Well, I think when you have somebody who's done things the same way for a really long time, that there may be potential for change in that department.
Mhm.
Looking at streamlining things, looking at bringing in the software and being not just, I have to do the software, but wow, let's do the software because that'll make everybody's life easier.
Mhm.
I like the way that Mr. Atchu answered the question when he was asked about, you know, how do you handle gray areas and solve those kind of problems with the customer and within the department. So it's just, I like the way he answered that. He was very positive about getting consensus and doing what's best for, you know, safety as well as the customer, so.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and both of them, one of the questions that I asked was particularly surrounding the zoning enforcement, which is something we've had some bumps on the road in
Yeah.
with Larry, you know, and you know, the need to have somebody know what they don't know, and to sort of circle back and talk to selectmen, talk to council, you know, when you're dealing with things, particularly on the zoning enforcement, because we have a fairly complicated zoning bylaw for a town of our size. I mean, largely because of the commercial stuff and all of the overlays and so on. So, but and you know, I was hoping that would be a dividing point, but each of them answered that pretty well, and you know, both recognized that there were traps for the unwary when you had an underlying zone, an overlay zone, and you know, different dimensions in each zone and so on.
I'm just curious, and I don't have much of an opinion on this, which one do you think would be more likely to be comfortable coming, or do you think they were equally likely to be comfortable coming to the people in Allison?
I mean, my sense was that each of them would.
Each of them?
I don't know,
Okay.
I mean, you
That's what I was gonna
were
say,
there
I
when I
don't
asked the
really have a-
question? Did you get any
For
sense?
enforcement?
Yeah.
Which one do you think
Yeah,
would
I
feel
got the
more
impression they
comfortable
were
coming to?
Sorry.
I thought they were pretty similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Larry's saying we have the selectmen decided 20 years ago that any zoning enforcement had to be based on written complaints? Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the whole.
Otherwise,
the
you're
whole
chasing
written
will-o'-the-wisps
process.
all over the damn countryside, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, absolutely. I mean, without a written complaint, you don't even know what you're talking about. You don't have a document, you know, a documentation of what you're acting on. So yes,
Sometimes
absolutely.
even with the written complaint, you're not quite
Hmm?
sure. I said sometimes even with the written.
Oh, yeah,
complaint, you're not quite
but
sure.
without one, you're just like out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was really not the case, you know, before that, you know, people would be running all over on these things. It's
Yeah, I
like,
can
well,
imagine it would be a full-time
yeah,
job.
Yeah,
if you-
exactly.
And one other thing is, I'm not sure about the time commitment, and again, a lot of that's gonna be based on the wages of salary, and I know that Mr. Hanks said he was considering keeping Templeton too, and Mr. Hatcher was just looking for one place to be. So, but maybe monies might have something
No, and
to
I
do
think
with that
perhaps
as
the
well.
idea
I don't
of,
know.
I mean, let's get the background, but I think perhaps the idea of putting together a 3 or 4 questions, including what, you know, what would your compensation expectation be, might be helpful to
Well,
divide.
find out what their compensation is now, right?
Well, that's what I say, we'll
Yeah.
discover that, and we'll, you know, yeah, because obviously if somebody's way above, already way above what we were offering, and we weren't, I don't think we were really planning on paying somebody more than we're paying Larry right now.
You didn't really advertise, so.
Yeah.
That's a difficult part when you don't put them out there.
Right.
You could get a candidate that's expecting to come here for $200,000.
Well, they know, they will know what we're paying our building inspector, so that's,
Oh,
you know.
they do their homework.
Yeah.
Uh,
I suspect, yeah.
I suspect they
they
have.
do.
I would imagine.
I mean, that one's pretty easy to get, so,
But you haven't said that that's what you're going to do, so.
right.
No, yeah.
Yeah, so, so I think that's one.
And then the references, correct?
We'll get, yep, we'll get references. In terms of interview, do you want to do, you want to do a conference call with 1 or 2 references each? I mean, I could arrange, you know, a conference call if the board wants to.
You mean like meet here and do a conference call?
Well, I can, I mean, I
Some of
have,
the
I
references,
have
or-
a continuous conference line, so it doesn't matter where you are, you can just call in, you know,
Okay.
call into it at a particular time. We have to check the open meeting stuff on that because,
That'd be remote participation, I suppose, of a form of a board not being held in a public location.
If you're that
yeah.
tight and that torn, then maybe you want to interview them again.
What?
Maybe you want to talk to the two candidates again. If you're that,
Yeah.
You're not
Either
leaning.
way- Either way, we have to get the references somehow.
Right.
So somebody's gotta do that. You can't, I don't think we can not do
Can you
that.
split them up and call them one-on-one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do, let's get the references, we can divide them up, okay?
Okay.
That way we don't have to deal with the open meeting stuff.
I thought it would be interesting to get not only the employer side references, so they've all offered up references of, you know, the building commissioner they worked for, or the town administrator they worked for. But nobody's offered up any of the customers,
Mm-hmm,
builders, homeowners, you know.
mm-hmm.
A little Google search might.
Um,
Maybe,
Yep.
maybe
What
not.
would happen if you asked for that?
Yeah, we could ask for that. I mean, obviously, they're not gonna give us somebody that they hit, you know, had a pissing match with, but still,
Yeah,
it'd be
I know,
where,
that's
it
why you need
might
to
be.
have Questions where the person doesn't know what the right answer is.
Yeah,
Are they more like this, or are they more like that?
Yeah.
As opposed to, was he a
Yeah.
good guy?
yeah,
I
okay.
think typically the bosses probably heard it too in this position. If you have a lot of complaints, they're probably hearing about it.
They should, yeah.
All right, so, we wanna check references,
Yeah.
1. We want to check their compensation, that's 2. 3, we want to ask them what their compensation requirements are. 4, we were thinking about other questions. The only sort of questions that I, you know, can think of immediately off the top of my head would be, you know, it's a small department, we have some long-term sub-inspectors who are not, who, you know, who are used to doing what they're doing, who aren't the most automated. I mean, how do you, you know, how do you deal with that? I mean, I would like to maybe ask, can you live with that? You know, what are the disadvantages of living with that? And, so those are the only sort of little circle of questions that, I can think of that I probably didn't push enough on the last week, but I don't know if anybody else has any other, sets of, obviously, if something comes out in the references, we'd wanna talk about that, but anything else that?
Yeah, I mean, I asked the questions, most of the questions I had when you
Yeah.
were here.
Okay. So, and then the question is, do we want to have, assign somebody to just call each of them, or do we want to have the two of them back in?
I guess we also have a short time frame.
Oh, and we
Correct.
want them to head back in
Yeah.
next week, I mean, I think,
Right.
yeah.
So the
Do you
timing
have-
is you need to get someone an offer and on board by the time Larry leaves, by the end of the month.
Ideally,
Nice.
and that,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, it's possible we could get an interim if we needed a week or two, or we have the the assistant who can help. If we're talking about a week or two, we can patch it in, but I think, yeah, I think,
Would it be, I'm just thinking, would it be terrible to just like throw out that question that you, since we've come up with basically one question? I'm wondering if maybe seeing the question back in written form is not another form of
checking,
seeing
see
the
how they
answer.
write, yeah?
Seeing the answer back in a written form.
And that
If you
question
come
was
up with-
about the department sort of thing, talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we, if you
And then
come up with
also
another
ask them to
question, you can do
submit
that too.
Their salary requirements at the same time?
Right.
Yeah,
So
And
just
then
a
you
written
get-
submission?
you get that piece also.
A written submission?
Or if there's
Maybe-
anyone they'd like
well,
us to
again, why
talk
do they
to.
think they're the best fit for Berlin?
Right.
So a brief written submission, 40 words or less, right? Or 100 words or less, something like that.
Under 500.
Yeah.
Under 500.
That's only
Well,
one
certainly
page.
it's a way to find out whether they're verbose or not.
Yeah. Okay, so are we going to ask for a written submission from those two, or are you going to ask them to come in?
Written
Or both?
submission.
Written
You could do
submission.
written submission and
Okay, written submission.
hopefully that will answer the questions
Okay.
that we have.
Okay. And I think when we need to be able to start is probably another question.
Right.
Um,
Whether they have to.
I think ideally, we'd want to have somebody in by about the 15th of, July. I think we can, we can fill in a couple of weeks or so with the assistant, but, beyond that, I think.
You mean
it's
with
actually-
Leanne?
Hmm?
Assistant being Leanne?
No. Tony Zaharitis, who's the Clinton, and he served as,
Oh, is that right?
yeah. So,
Okay.
I mean, he's the Clinton
Probably better, because.
inspector, but, that can't last too long with him being the primary
Right.
contact, but it is something that can fill in on a short run basis. So, okay,
So if we're concerned about zoning enforcement, which I know Larry said that's a big part of his job, maybe in the reference checks, we should ask for some examples, or I'm sure each person has had to deal with some tricky
Yeah,
zoning
I think that would be
enforcement
good.
issues. It'd be kind of interesting how they went about it and what the outcome was.
Could call the chairman of the zoning board for each community.
yeah. Yeah, we could. All right, so then we have to put together the written
Yep.
questions. Any volunteers for putting together those? Or Mary, do you have enough notes that you can?
I don't really wanna step into your shoes on, I can give you a
No,
draft.
I mean, from your
Just
notes,
give a
can
draft
you?
note or give from the draft,
Right,
and
I
we
can
can
give
go
you a
over it.
draft
Right.
of what I just wrote.
Yeah, no, exactly. And
You
then who
wanna-
wants to
you wanna-
edit that?
I can edit it.
Okay,
Or I
done.
can work with Mary.
Okay. References, let's try to get 3 from each, including
Well,
one.
Larry has 3
He
from
has
each right
the-
now,
Okay,
but they are all either town administrators or
And that's where it's
commissioners, and
going.
maybe that's all we're gonna get.
Yeah, let's be sure we, see if we can get at least one consumer.
Hmm.
That would give us 6, and then, we can divvy them up, and if each of us took 2 references and we were working from, we were working on, 3 for each, okay?
3 for each.
3 for
Yep.
each, so that would mean if each of us did 2, checked out 2 of the references, we could deal with that.
Yeah, and we should have-
Yeah, I'm also available to make some calls if you want.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah. All right.
I'm the only one here who's been handed 2 cease and desists in 1 year.
2 what?
Cease and desists.
Ah?
So you know the questions to ask.
No. I've actually been doing building the last year and developed a great relationship with Larry and
Yeah.
kind of understand both sides of the challenge of.
That's good, so, yeah, if we were interviewing Larry, I'd know who I could talk to, right? All right.
Well, I've heard about some people some behaviors we don't want here also. It's like
Right.
so.
Okay, and then Mary, you can check the figures for those 2?
Towns, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, 3, you're saying Templeton too?
Huh?
Townsend and Templeton, is that where you're saying he's in?
Well, those are the
locations?
places
Two
that he works.
locations.
I think what you're looking is Towns, because that's his main,
Only Townsend, okay.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, because Templeton was really small, a small
that's
portion that
right.
you did, right?
That's right. And
It's
he
messed
was
up.
suggesting,
Messed up.
he was gonna keep that anyway, so I think that what we're talking about is what.
I didn't hear that though. I thought that question came up and he said he was looking for one.
He
full-time.
didn't, no, last week, when he was here, he said,
Oh,
well,
in the meeting here.
Yeah.
He said he was thinking of keeping.
Yeah, that's what I
Depending-
remember.
Oh, I didn't remember that, but,
if he could
I
make it
remember
work.
that.
try and do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
okay.
And-
Is this gonna be a 40-hour position? Because Larry's 32, right? Or Larry's less than 40.
I think we'd probably expect this at maybe 35 at this point or something, but keeping it at the same compensation level. Yeah,
So someone could be working in another small town
yes,
concurrently.
yeah. And again, trying to keep in mind balancing that short-term, demand against, long-term sustainability in terms of the position, so. All right, so I think if we can get the questions out to them in the next day or 2 and ask them to return them by next Monday. And then, again, if we can get the references out to us, each of us can call them this week and be prepared to speak.
Okay, the references will be included in their written submission?
Well, they'd have to, references would have to come back sooner in order for you to
Well-
have that ready for Monday,
Yeah.
right?
Or Larry has
Larry has
Larry has
some,
references.
Right.
but I think we should ask them for, a consumer reference. Maybe we should ask them for that when we give them the questions to say, if they could possibly give that to us so we could check it before next Monday.
And you want how many consumer references? You want?
Just one
One,
from each of them, yes,
2, 1 from each of them.
yes.
And so there is not gonna be, you guys are not gonna be doing background checks because you're gonna use Larry's, otherwise.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's a good question on the background checks. I don't think anybody's done background checks yet.
I meant references, but okay, background checks too. You mean like a query?
Yeah.
Oh, that's, employment is subject to a query
Yeah.
usually in a regular, and a physical,
Yeah.
How about the chief, Galvin?
Well, I mean, the Corey
Yeah.
covers criminal
Well,
stuff, et cetera. yeah.
No, I mean.
Corey only covers a small part, but Chief Galvin can do additional
Right.
background, as he did for others.
Yeah,
So,
Mhm.
so let's talk
He
to
did
him
it on
about
me.
that. Yeah, let's talk to
He
him
didn't
about
find it.
that. All right,
I hit it well,
there you go. Okay? Thank you.
All right, what happens, the reference checks get done and then
Well, I'm hoping that
Meeting next
if we
week.
get, if we get those additional references and we can call people this week, that we can take a vote next week. You are welcome to come next week, particularly if you have further thoughts or want to participate further in the discussion. We also thank you, and if you want to leave us hanging up on your own, you can do that too.
All right.
Okay?
Just have
See it through.
One more quick comment on
Yes.
the eagerness front.
On the what?
Mr. H.U. came in early, was here when I was here, before anybody was here, came in and introduced himself, and he was also the first one back with a thank you note.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Yep. All right,
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Okay.
thanks very much. All right. Let's see, I think we were pretty close. All right,
That's not right.
all right. Okay, bear with me. Okay, I think we covered Cabela's. The response to the water runoff complaints at 117 West Street and 64 Peach Hill Road. I think that basically, at this point, we can say that we could say that the town feels, with respect to the Peach Hill Road, that the matter appears to be a matter of high water table, and, from our looking at this property, we can't see how reasonably one could suggest that the drainage and the drainage swale is contributing to it. Why don't you catch up? Let me know when you're caught up.
Yep.
All right. And on the West Street, that we understand that there's some grading that would need to be done to match the roads to the swale. That during the time that is not matched up, there's been some damage to the swale, and the town would be willing to patch it once they've done the correction to grade. I think
To the
that's what we.
driveway?
Yep. And I think he said, that there's perhaps some minor damage there, and he'd be willing to send somebody over to patch it. So I think that's the response to those two.
I could
Can we
draft
just-
those for Lisa to sign, maybe, later in the week, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think we need actually a vote in that if we all concur, right? All right. Good. Okay. All right, next. Schedule a site walk. This is Steve Beard, June 9th. Well, forget that. June 12th, not so good. And the 16th, which is Friday. I will not be able to do the 16th. I'll be out of town on Friday evening, by Friday evening. But certainly anybody else who wants to go.
We sort of have to know what we were looking for, right?
Well, Steve Beard
Steve Barrett
would
would.
Yeah,
be
point it
taking
out.
I'm not
you.
sure I can do it either.
Which, this is
Okay.
Friday, this coming Friday?
Yeah.
Yes. Or maybe we say to him, we kind of got overtaken by the passage of time here, and maybe do we need 3 more dates next week and the following?
Yeah,
You want to say that?
yeah.
Okay?
We can do that, or I can go on Friday.
Huh?
I can go on Friday, if you want me to do it.
If you would like to, that's fine. You can work with Steve. Otherwise, we can, yeah, why don't you?
I'll go on Friday.
All right. So,
Did you have a time, or?
Just after work.
5:30 on would work, is what he says here. Here, take that.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any, what I'm gonna suggest is this. Mary and I had discussed capital planning committee, recruitment, and I think we need to put out a note. We need to put out a request for volunteers for the selectmen. And we need to, and I think that's 2, and we need to put a reminder out to the other boards that have appointments to do the same thing. And I think that's all we need to do on that.
Do you want a
Point.
deadline?
Huh?
Do you want a deadline so that you actually have it filled by a certain point?
I would say not earlier than mid-July. I mean, this is, let's say August 1st. Because again, they have a cycle in which they're working really, late September, early October through budget season, so it's not like, we need somebody appointed,
So I
the
could just
first of the
advise the
fiscal year.
boards that you're doing it with an August 1st deadline and they can do whatever they want to do.
Right.
Okay.
Now, each of these people, do they need specific requirements
Nope.
that the,
No,
Okay,
they
so
took
there's
that out of the
just-
bylaw, so
we pick one, they pick one,
we picked 2,
or we pick 2, they
Yeah.
pick?
yeah.
Does it make sense to just have all the resumes come in, have people, all the boards look at them, rather than trying
Nope,
to, no?
Because we
Divvy
don't do
No?
it jointly.
Okay.
We do it separately.
To separate the
Okay.
power.
So we do our 2, they do theirs,
So somebody
and
could
tell us.
potentially send their resume to us and them and everybody else, that's how,
If we do it quickly, then,
I'm just
we'll jump the gun.
curious how this works,
Yeah.
cause it seems like an awful,
I think it's gonna be confusing because people
Awfully
are gonna see
confusing
possibly
process.
posts from various entities.
Well, that's
Yeah.
true.
I'm
that's
just
why I was
thinking
wondering if you just
simultaneously.
wanted a pool and then everybody can look at them and choose the
It's just
ones
not
they
how it was
want
set
from
up,
the
though.
pool.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I was asking Tom about procedurally. How do you want to handle that? Because
I think we should do it the way we do it, because others may want to appoint a member of their committee.
Okay.
Okay,
And again,
And
it's
if-
not our hunt,
Yeah.
okay.
okay? So I think we should go out saying volunteer for the Board of
Selectmen's 2 seats.
Selectmen
Seats.
representative. That's what we're soliciting, the Board of Selectmen representatives.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the others, as I say, the others may decide they don't even want to go out for volunteers.
Mm.
They may say, we just want to appoint somebody from our board, right?
Possible.
Yeah. We'll
It
see
just
how it
seems
works
if
out.
we
and
get
if we get-
multiple good
Yeah,
resumes
if we
in,
do.
we could maybe share that.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think some of them will just appoint a member of their board.
I don't think FinCom can't though, right? They're-
Right.
Aren't they one of them?
FinCom can't, right.
So-
But any, and the moderator can't, but
Can't, 'cause he doesn't
planning
have-
board can certainly appoint a member of their own board. Okay,
Okay.
all right. And no update on the,
On the Regional
Yeah.
School Agreement Amendment Committee, I went to the meeting last Thursday. They were basically still discussing amongst the administration and the school committee members, I think, what the process is.
okay, so no real.
No, and
Something
then it was a continuation of questions from the other parts of the audience,
Okay,
so
all right,
not much.
okay. Anything else to come in open session?
I don't think so. No.
All right, then we are going to go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter. And we will not be going into, we will not be returning to open session.
Well, you will only to adjourn.
Hmm?
Only to adjourn,
Only to adjourn.
right. So I'll
Yes,
make that
no more
motion.
business. All right. Andrew, aye?
Key five.
Aye.
Okay. Do you mind if we take just like a 5-minute break, because we,
You're in charge.
yeah. No, and
I'm
that's
gonna-
why I'm asking
I'm
if
gonna
you
get
would
rid of that
mind.
cup of
That's
coffee.
all.
If you're taking a break, I'm gonna get rid of that cup of coffee.
Yeah. Do you mind?